right. I'm with Hugo, the founder of Ritmoo. Hugo, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Andrew, for the invitation and for joining the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for joining. Congrats again on the recent acquisition. For those that may not know you, do you want to give a brief introduction of yourself?
Yeah, my name is Hugo. I am talking right now, late night from Amsterdam, the Netherlands. And I was the founder of Ritmoo, which was a goal management platform, which I'll explain a little bit more in detail later on. Prior to Ritmoo, I worked as the marketing leader or a go-to-market leader for various startups and scale-ups 15 years before, and most notably at EVBox, where I was the chief growth officer, and we grew the company from few million in revenue to 100 plus million in revenue, and went from 10 people to 700 people, and from early stage to the almost, I call it the almost IPO, was during the SPAC IPO phase of Corona, where everyone was going crazy with this SPAC IPO. Ultimately, it didn't work out well, and I also wrap up the journey at EVBox during that phase. And then I decided to found Ritmoo 2 years, recently sold, and since then, I'm doing some fractional executive role, either as an interim lead growth or lead marketeer, until I figure out the next venture, the next journey.
Right on. That's quite the background. Congrats on all the success. Tell me about Ritmoo. What did it do? What prompted it solve?
Yeah, so in a nutshell, and also it comes from the history of prior at EVBox, every time we had to work on the company and become bigger, there was always this conversation about, where are we going to track the goals of the company? How are we going to track progress and communicate effectively? And it always ended up in all these bloated platforms, let's call it big HR platforms, which have a small, tiny goal management bit to it. A lot of OKR platforms, and for the ones that are not familiar, OKR is a famous goal-setting methodology of objectives and key results. There was a lot of those, but everything felt cumbersome, and the more we grew, the more painful it was getting, where utilization was great in the first quarter, and then it's dropping. And I still recall that I think my CEO at EVBox, in the 3 years we used different platforms, logged in maybe once to the system to see the progress of the company. So somehow I felt, how is it possible there are so many companies, so many software systems, and this goal management is always a mess. And, product uses Jira, someone else uses Asana, HR uses performance management. And I felt that maybe this is a pain point. And it felt like, okay, when companies are growing, they must have some better lightweight system. And that's what I was hoping to do, like a simple system where you can track the goals, where you can see the progress of those, but in a different way, where it's more simplified, built for teams, that talks to you, and you don't have to update every single week, but actually, interacts in the systems where you are. That was the initial concept. That's how we got started with some initial traction. And, over 2 years, we sold the platform. We added services to it, which is maybe an odd choice to do. But we noticed a lot of companies had more a behavior issue than a software issue. So in the end, it became a software and service component. And after 2 years, we didn't grow to the extent that we wished so. And and we decided, okay, might be the time to wrap up. And we decided to start the selling process a few months ago.
Right on. Tell me the business model really quick. What did that look like?
Yeah, so it was in two ways. Either we initially was just like a subscription, where we had the traditional team subscription fee, you pay a monthly fee, traditional SaaS, where you have like a SaaS subscription. The difference is that we had a model that perhaps people were not, we were a bit frustrated with the SaaS model that you pay per user. And we felt that with a lot of goal management platforms, 50% of the organization doesn't really need to use it, just needs to be aware of the progress. So we actually had a tier of like, if you are a team member that doesn't have a high activity of commenting, checking progress, doing reports, then you just pay a symbolic fee, and the rest of the people pay a normal fee. So there was like the incentive of like, hey, you actually don't have to pay for your whole team. You can actually just pay for the ones that really need to act with the platform, and the rest just needs to see, which is a pain point I still have today, where I use Asana or Monday and I have a team of 20 or 30. I don't want to pay for the 20 or 30 because maybe 10 of them are actually using, and 20 just need to be aware of the progress. But I still pay the same for everyone. And so that was a subscription model. And later on, we added service, which was more onboarding process, coaching processes to implement correctly, training the leadership team. So that was more project-based, where we had a program that could be 3, 6, 9 months. And and that was, it was helping us that people who buy the service and we had the software, or they buy the software and we had the service on top. So it was generating cash flow on both ends. Yeah.
Nice. I love this. It sounds like you do the pain points in and out. You use the competing platforms, you saw what you didn't like, and you look to build something that would be more aligned with what you were looking to accomplish when you were using those tools. Is that kind of right?
I think that when we knew it well, I believe that perhaps the founder mistake that myself and many make is they try to tap into too much of a complex problem, and goal management at scale-ups, it is a complex problem that sometimes software doesn't solve alone. Is one of those issues that everyone complains, but there's not necessarily a single solution. There's multiple ways to go about that. So I think over time, what we felt is that sometimes everyone was interested, everyone was excited, or at least our customers and prospects. They'll try the software for 3 months, but afterwards they'll be like, okay, but I kind of can live with a pain point with Jira and Asana for a little bit longer, and then we'll delay and delay and delay. And I felt that over time I learned that, yeah, the pain point is real, but the way to go about that might not just be more software. And then when we realized that the services were actually always more revenue than the software, we felt that the scalability was an issue. And to be honest, me and my co-founder realized that, okay, is this really the 10x startup that we're really excited for to build? And we felt, okay, perhaps it's better to give the chance to someone else to do it on our behalf. And that's when we got to acquire and did the whole process, thankfully. Otherwise, we'll just wrap up the company and not know if there was an interest out there.
I think that's a great reason to sell when you realize the business isn't going to scale to reach your goals, and rather than just shutting it down or maybe spending another year or two on it, trying to grow the business when the growth isn't there, that can be a perfect time to find a new buyer that can breathe, the energy the business needs, even if it's just a lifestyle business or a profitable small business. So that's awesome. But tell me about your experience on Acquire. What did that look like?
Well, I believe that for me it was a little bit, as you mentioned, like I have the habit of not letting go until I see success, or at least try to push to the max, and was bugging me that I cannot just let this die without trying it more and more and more. Naturally, I had me and my co-founder, we had a few people that worked with us through the last 2 years, outsourced designers, content, we had content people, we had some experts that joined us to deliver the services so that we could scale. But ultimately, the more services we were giving, the less excited my co-founder was, because I understand he was a CTO co-founder. Yeah. So the platform is the livelihood of his work, and the more service oriented we go, the more different profile of people you need to hire. And it started to rely too much on me. Yeah. I was delivering the services, facilitating, and not developing as much of the platform. So we thought about, okay, maybe it's time to wrap up, also because we are seeing different visions of where a company should go in a good way. And I felt like, okay, but I don't want to necessarily give it away. And it was really like just listening to different stories of people saying, hey, but why don't you try to, publish your story in a platform like Acquire and see what happens. So it was a referral. And I got positively surprised, one, by the interest. I think I got, and this I perhaps need to review the numbers, but I will not be mistaken if I didn't have 20 to 30 people reaching out, which was for me a surprise, because I was like, okay, this is not like a 1 million ARR story or like 500K ARR story. It's more like an early stage, 2 year. We couldn't scale. We had some revenue. We have customers, we have metrics, we have users, but it's not the most appealing story that I felt that people would be interested in. But I got shocked. I got surprised by the amount of interest that was there, from various different topics. And, I got to have conversations with 4 or 5 different buyers. And ultimately, the buyer that was interested felt really connected to the platform, to the story of Ritmoo, to the brand. And we felt excited to work with him, even if his proposal was even lower than some other conversations I was having with some other ones. So funny enough, we sold to the one that had the biggest heart to make a success over just, financial exit, let's put it that way.
That's awesome. I think that's smart too. Sounds like you sold it to a buyer that you think that could take it the farthest, or they could grow the business. They could keep making sure the business is alive and the customers are taken care of. Is that correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And we did even things such as that part of our joint agreement, of transition, that I introduced him to all the customers, that he had a chance of pitching to them. We are still in connections. We have our Slack account that is still part of it, that he still asks questions from time to time. He says, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm thinking of adding this service. What's your opinion? So it also feels like a nice wrap up. Naturally, now it's on him to build up with the team the story from here onwards. But I'm still available for any questions he has. We still have a communication, and and it gives a good pleasure to say, okay, I wrap up my journey, but maybe in a year, 2 years from now, it's one of, I wish, I regret giving it away. That's my best wish. I wish he did way better than me. I wish to be this sentiment in 2 years from now. I truly wish that, because it means that he was able to do with it what I wasn't able. And I'll be incredibly happy for him if he is able.
That's amazing. It sounds like you want the buyer to be extremely successful with this acquisition. And more often than not, when I see that, that makes the best acquisitions on both sides, because that's what buyers, want to see is a founder that is willing to help with the transition, help answer any questions they might have so they can be successful. So I think when you have that shared view of, you can sell the business, get acquired, and make the new buyer really successful, that's a great outcome.
No, truly agree, and thanks for those words. Good reminder. Yeah.
What did you do to prepare for the acquisition? Did you do anything before listing or put materials together?
Yeah, so one of the things that helped me is by default, I have this tendency of being quite structured on my folder structure over time. So that when the due diligence came, that actually helped me tremendous, because I was not like lost. I have the documentation like 60% done. What really helped was when it got to that stage, there was a whole list suggested by the platform, which was like, okay, have these, which set the foundation to do, this is good. This I actually don't have. This I don't have. This I have. It is not well documented. So it set a really good foundation for me to prepare some new documentation that I never had at the time. You know how it is, the founder journey, you document up to a certain extent, but sometimes you just decide that, it's okay, I'll document it later. So it actually to put some effort to put some documentation, technical documentation, how the product works, some other elements, and also legal stuff that I might not, I might overlook, even if it's a US oriented platform or user base, at least it looked like. It gave me the foundation of like, okay, this is everything I have to prepare. So I think, for my learning that I was happy about is that as a founder, sometimes you might overlook the importance of knowledge management, documentation, why you made certain decisions. I am happy that I had quite a lot of those documented, because it helped me a lot in the due diligence phase. And it gave confidence to the buyer, because when I gave him access to all the shared drive, it was like, this is great. There's so much documentation, so many things to learn. So it also gave confidence. Okay, these guys are serious. This is not like a, side job, playing around and see what happens. It actually had, meat to it. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic, because a lot of buyers, when they, enter into an acquisition, they're assuming the business is messy and unorganized, and they have a concern where they're going to have to figure out how everything works. So when you have all that put together, when you're speaking with the buyer as you're going into due diligence, it's massive, because it gives them confidence and it shows a view into how you run the business, which is organized and structured, and they can learn from all that to again make them successful.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and what really helped in this case was there was something on either on the platform or on the conversation saying like, or one of the blog articles. I don't know now what was the knowledge of it, but it had an element of like help your buyer understand who are your best customers and why they trust you. And it helped me, for example, I did screenshots of emails of customers replying with the codes to make sure it was real. And I remember Ludo, the buyer, saying like, hey, Hugo, well, actually this was really helpful, because I was like, oh, wow, it's actually an actual email to you saying, wow, what a great work. It really helped out with the feedback and not some code that I see on a website that I don't know exactly how it came to life. So those like emails like gave truth. And of course, once it takes over, you can check the emails himself by checking the workspace. But that was actually a really good one that helped understand the power of, good service, good delivery, and hopefully it can continue, of course.
That is awesome. What'd you do to celebrate the acquisition when it closed? You got to dinner?
I went for a nice dinner with my co-founder, and we debrief what were the main learnings that we had, what we could have done better, what we wish we knew from the beginning. So we had like kind of a debrief night. We had these dinners more or less once a month, like to reflect and look forward. So we just did a bigger one, let's just say more expensive, use a little bit of cash out to do some nice giveaway gift to ourselves. And but we use it as a debrief lesson, because what was good to know is that my co-founder was also a friend for the last 7 years. We got to know each other at EVBox. And we already had collaborated on a retrospective too, just for fun. And it's one of those things that we knew that we were starting to figure out that, hey, we might want to have different things. We might have different objectives. We also have the lifestyle impact, to be honest, the cash flow starts running out and you have mortgages, kids, etc. The pressure accumulates. And we decided to bootstrap, which has its pros and cons. But one of the cons is that, of course, you feel the financial pressure if things are not coming your way. But we said, okay, even if we wrap up, we have to find a way to have a graceful exit and stay friends, because who knows if you're not going to collaborate again in 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So, and that was important for us as part of our founder promise or founder agreement, let's say. So yeah, it was nothing fancy. It was a dinner. We also sold literally and we signed right before Christmas. So it was like, we just want to have the Christmas period, enjoy the families. But yeah, was just a really nice dinner. That's how far we got.
That's a nice way to wrap up the year, the holiday season.
Yeah. It was also high pressure of closing everything legally in the Netherlands, but luckily we just wrap up everything legally on the 31st. So that was right on time. Yeah.
Well done. If a founder came to you and they were looking to sell their business, maybe they were in a similar spot, what's a couple of pieces of advice you think you'd give them?
Well, one, do not give up too fast. I think a lot of founders I talked to said, yeah, we didn't hit the goals. We decided to just wrap up the business, close the business, and they never even tried to explore a platform like Acquire to see what potential is out there, what kind of questions, what people are interested or not interested. I do remember recently a founder said, why would I even sell? It's pre-revenue. What's the point? And I'm like, you'll be surprised the kind of people that you might find or arrange. And, what's 3 months of your life of going through the platform, giving it an extra shot. If there is a better port, who knows, maybe someone does even better than you, and that should be something you're happy with. So not giving up too soon, I think that's definitely one. And if a founder is looking to sell, I'm definitely happy I had really things documented. So I would say do not underestimate the importance of having strong documentation to impress the buyer from the get-go. I had, the first 5 conversations, I quickly realized I had done a few mistakes. I rearranged, I did the automatic NDA, and upon the NDA, I had an automatic message that had a video of myself introducing myself to the buyer. Why am I doing what I'm doing? What I believe is a pain point, a quick showcase of the platform. So it was a 6-7 minute video. And I just basically, there was a great introduction for the buyers that reached out to me. Some of them said, oh, really interesting. If there was more traction, I'll definitely be there. But hey, let's stay in touch on LinkedIn. Funny enough, one of the buyers recently saw the news on Ritmoo, said, hey, I'm really happy for you. By the way, I have another company that needs, some of your thinking. Can we have a conversation with them? And I had like a 1-hour conversation on how I see marketing and growth. So there's also other opportunities that comes from it. But outside, documentation. Do not underestimate documentation. Do not underestimate first impressions, and do not give up too soon.
That's great advice. I 1000% agree with everything you said, especially the piece on not giving up. I think a lot of founders don't realize just how big of a market there can be for what they built, even if it's not profitable, or like you said, even if it's pre-revenue or just getting off the ground. There's always buyers at every stage looking at different opportunities at Acquire, and there's no downside. I think if you're wondering whether you should look to sell your business or if there's a buyer or if there isn't a buyer, the main way to find out is to go look. And if you don't find one, then you have your answer and you know what to do at that point. But I mean, it's at least a door I think every founder should explore. So I think it's great advice. Yeah. Well, right on. Huge congrats on what you've accomplished. You've really accomplished what every entrepreneur dreams of doing. I know building a startup is extremely hard. What are you doing? What's next for you? What's the next chapter looking like?
Well, so the good part is that 2 years of building a startup didn't wear me down to avoid doing any other one. So I definitely want to build again. I feel and believe the pace of AI development is so fast that I'm waiting to see what's coming next, because I feel every time I'm trying to build an application, there's something faster going. So I'm like, okay, there's so much fast development. We're going to wait a little bit longer and build on the side a few things. So I'm still building on the side smaller applications. So one thing I noticed that I was trying to solve too much of a big problem. So I'm trying to now to build something to solve smaller problems or simpler problems and just seeing if it sticks. In the meantime, while I'm building on the side, I am running as a fractional. So I help scale-ups, most scale-ups above 10 million ARR on the next phase of growth as, interim CMO, interim growth officer or lead growth. And I want to do that just like probably for another year and a half. But again, if I build something that has some traction in the next couple of months, things changes. But I'm definitely going to keep building on the side, and until that happens, helping scale ups, keep the next phase of growth, or at least unlock some new way of thinking that they might be struggling now in this era. Yeah.
Right on. Well, Hugo, thanks again for coming on the podcast. Congrats again on the acquisition. If people want to follow you online, where can they find you?
LinkedIn, very open, try to reply to everyone and to the extent possible. And but yeah, LinkedIn is the best way to follow and to reach out to me. And yeah, the only thing is that do mention why you are reach out when doing a connection invite, because if it's an empty connection, I might overlook it. So yeah, always good to give a reason or just a shout out that they heard the podcast or something like that. Then I'll pay more attention to it.
Sounds good. I'll put it in the show notes. Hugo, thanks again for coming on and excited to see you keep building.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. Appreciate all the work you've done with the platform, and thanks for helping me out with the exits.
Appreciate that. Cheers.
Cheers.